Well, it's that time of the year. It's the middle of March, and the NCAA basketball brackets are done, and we're going to fill them out here this morning. John Wood basketball coach Brad Hoyt is with us this morning. Thanks, first of all, for coming in. Second of all, were there any huge upsets this year?
There's a lot of huge upsets this year, to be honest with you. If you're looking for me to give you an answer key this morning, we're probably not going to get that. Probably not going to get that done. The college basketball season as a whole was full of upsets, as far as people getting in the tournament, not in the tournament, and sort of throughout the entire year. I think if you look at the bracket, I think the teams that have sort of maybe a bone to pick of not being in the tournament are teams like Southern Miss and last year's national champion Kentucky, who's not a part of this year's tournament. Whoops. Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
So we're going to go ahead and start picking some teams here. I'm looking at just the Midwest here. It seems pretty easy to pick between a 1 seed and a 16 seed. It gets a little bit more difficult when you get to the 8s and 9s. Missouri is a 9 seed. How do you think they'll do against Colorado State?
Well, the Missouri game should be actually a pretty good game, and for all of the Missouri fans in the area, you sort of go with a little bit of the Dow Jones. They sort of go up and down, and depends on the part of the year. So Colorado's very, very good. Colorado State's one of the best rebounding teams in the country. Should be a pretty good game. I think regionally we've got to go with Missouri.
Okay, then I'm gonna trust you on this one.
Yeah, that's your fault, but that's fine. Yeah.
Thankfully, this is not for any pools or anything like that. Now we have Oklahoma State and Oregon. What is there anything to look for in that game?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they're two really, really good teams. Oregon probably, of anyone in the tournament, is probably the one that can have a little bit of a maybe another bone to pick on being a 12 seed. They're probably better than that, to be honest with you. They had a great run through the year. They had some injuries late in the year. So Oregon's going to be a tough out. And really the Midwest bracket, the one that we're looking at right now, is probably the toughest bracket as I look at it anyway. Out of the four regions.
And now St. Louis is playing New Mexico State. I'm going to go ahead regionally and just go with St. Louis on that one. They're 4 seed with compared to New Mexico State's 13 seed. We're going to talk a little bit more. I'm going to continue filling this out. Kansas, a lot of people here in the area are Kansas fans, and they're number 1 seed. How do you think they'll end up doing?
It's hard to count Kansas out of anything, to be real honest with you. So they've got maybe a pretty favorable bracket, sort of working their way through that a little bit. I would not be surprised at all, and I probably wouldn't bet against the fact of them being in Atlanta at the Final Four once again this year.
All right, thanks, Brad. We're going to talk with you here a little bit later on in the show. Well, it's that time of the year, the middle of March. NCAA basketball season is here, and we're ready to go. Games start tomorrow. John Wood basketball coach Brad Hoyt joins us this morning, talking a little bracketology. What is your #1 tip for people who are filling out a bracket?
Just roll the dice and guess. No, I think from a basketball perspective, I think you want to look at a couple different things. Guard play is a pretty important part, but to be honest with you, it's why they call it March Madness. That there's no rhyme or reason to it. This year in college basketball has been a goofy year anyway, so it's hard to really identify the best 3 or 4 teams. So you know, I think you go into it with a pretty open mind. I think it's a year you can take some risks a little bit in your little bracket pool and have some fun with it.
Now, I was looking at one of the tips that I saw was don't pick too many upsets. Don't go with too many Cinderella stories, because they're all not going to be that way.
There's going to be upsets, and I mean, obviously the key is to pick the right ones. But yeah, I think you can get a little upset heavy. You know, I think you can like the Cinderella, like we all do, and want to sort of see that team that maybe not picked to win to go through. And again, college basketball is a lot of parity, but the top 4 or 5 teams are probably the top 4 or 5 teams.
One of my things that I usually do is I pick maybe a 2 or 3 seed to go all the way. But this year my Final Four are Michigan State, Ohio State, Kansas, and Indiana. And I have MSU and Indy playing in the Final 2, and I have Indy winning. So
a little Big Ten, I like it. Yeah, we're a Big Ten country. That's a good thing.
We'll see what happens. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.